everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Revenue Focused Marketer, where we discuss anything and everything related to marketing as well as data. I'm your usual host, Hershey, and today's conversation is one that every founder, marketer, and brand operator needs to hear. We're really going to change and challenge a widely accepted belief in the industry that branding is a subset of marketing. And to help us flip the script that, we've been having in our head, we have none other than Charlie Birch. Charlie, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much for reaching out and for having me on the show.
Yeah, definitely. So just a little bit about her. Like, she is a founder as well as a creative director. And Charlie, tell us where you're working at.
I live in southern New Jersey in the U.S.
Awesome. So thank you so much for joining us again. And I know that, a lot of the work that you've been doing is like going just beyond logos and taglines and start treating brands as like more behavioral foundation for growth. And for people who are kind of really struggling with aligning marketing, sales, like their customer service operations, I think this episode's really the one for you. So I guess we can start with, just hearing more about you, Charlie. Tell us about, how you got to kind of be a founder and got to start your brand. But just about your journey would be great.
Yeah, sure. It's a giant ball of yarn, a winding road. My background is actually in psychology. So I did my undergrad in psychology and dance performance as a double major. And then I went on to work in a psychiatric hospital facility as a crisis responder for a couple of years, went to grad school for dance therapy, which is one of the many creative arts therapies that really is focused on what's going on in the body with mental illness and wellness in general. And when it came time to apply to internships, I just started having this like nagging feeling of like, this isn't really what I want to do. Like, this was my plan B. Like, I wanted to be a dancer and I had a back injury. And so people were like, oh, do psychology. And I just started doing that. And then I realized I was walking this path of like my plan B, and I hadn't really paused to make an alternative plan A, if you will, like something that really felt like aligned with my whole human. One of the things about being a counselor, licensed counselor in the States, is that you have to pick a place to live and you have to get licensed in that state. And it just felt like this really like rigid, like I don't want to, right? Like I don't want to do that. So I happened to be living in Boulder, Colorado at the time, which many people know has a huge entrepreneurial community. And I just happened like the week that I decided, you know what, I think I'm going to drop out of grad school. There was a big startup summit and a friend of mine was working at a co-working space, and she was like, why don't you just come to some of these mixers with me? And I was like, oh my God, these are my people, like people that are like, I have an idea, I'm going to make it a thing. I had like really never even heard of entrepreneurship. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to try my hand at like this coaching business idea, because like all these skills I learned, one thing led to another. And, I've had many different iterations of me as an entrepreneur. Humanize is the most recent one. And especially lately, I've been really, really acutely aware of how it's brought me so full circle. Like everything I learned as a dancer and choreographer, as a psychology student, as a crisis responder, all these skills that might seem totally random and disparate are actually very, very relevant to the work that I'm doing now with my clients in terms of helping to create really distinct identities for businesses that are as dynamic as the people who work inside of them and the people who patron them or, collaborate with them. So yeah, it's been a really fun experience lately, especially the more I back up into what branding really can be for a business versus how a lot of people treat it, the more I realize that I have this really diverse, unconventional skill set that is a secret power, superpower for me and my clients to access and take advantage of.
That is amazing. I love, I kind of recently had this full circle moment too. I started my own business as well, and an aspect of that was like being able to combine what I did as a consultant before and sort of being the product leader within AI and now doing AI consulting. So for me also, it was like, I've been doing these things in the past and now being able to kind of put them together And entrepreneurship, comes with so much responsibility is what I'm learning. So I might have to ask you a tip or two at the end, like just for my own sanity. I don't think since I've started this thing, I've been able to sleep. Like, even when I'm sleeping, I think I'm still thinking about this.
Yeah.
And somehow I've converted my room to just whiteboards where I'm like constantly writing because there's too much going in here. And, I used to do this work before, but now there's more responsibility. And that's just definitely on my shoulders, it seems like. So I guess let's start with any advice that you might have for other founders or people that are still figuring out this sort of entrepreneurial side.
Well, I think we're in this interesting cultural moment where entrepreneurship is really very in vogue and a lot of people are trying their hand at it. I am an interesting case in that I decided really early on, like pretty much before I had a career, that I didn't really want to work for anybody else, and then I didn't really see like a job description that totally took advantage of me, and I'll just create that. I'll just make that for myself. And I think there's a couple of pieces of advice I would give to people who are either coming out of corporate or coming out of life and wanting to start a business.
Yeah.
My parents were both entrepreneurs. I grew up, they were business partners, and I really saw my dad struggled with substance abuse as a way to cope with the stress of being in leadership, and my mom, burned out numerous times. Like, she tells this story of walking down the beach and not wanting to go home from family vacation, walking down the beach, and she's like, I literally started running along with the flock of seagulls, and I broke down in tears crying when I couldn't fly away. And she was like, and that's the moment that I realized I had outsourced my life to make room for my business, and it took me well into my late 20s to realize that I had internalized a lot of those behaviors and that I was really operating in a stress state all the time. And there's so many messages in our culture that tell us like, hustle, sleep when you're dead, blah, blah, blah. But like, the truth is that you can only give your business as much as you have space, like inside yourself. So like one of the things we talk about in psychology, which actually I was just talking to somebody about the other day, is this concept of the window of tolerance. And that's neuroscience actually. So it's the idea that like, you have this range of tolerance for positive and negative experiences where you can stay regulated inside of them, right? And you make it really, if you try to, push down the negative stuff, it just shrinks the whole window. Like, it doesn't just shrink in one direction. And so as you're going into entrepreneurship, it's really important to be able to look honestly at the positive and the negative. And one of the things that I had to learn kind of the hard way early on, when I was part of a startup, that the leader of that startup was really like a happiness bully, like a positivity bully. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but there was no space in the conversation for useful critique and honest assessment of what's really going on.
And emotions are real, all sorts of
right?
Right? It's just not happy all the time.
Right. So like, think about all of your experiences, not so much as like positive thinking or negative thinking or limiting beliefs or, but to think about like, what mindset is going to expand my capacity, what mindset is going to expand my network, think about it in terms of expansion versus constriction. And then you can really start to feel that in your body of like, is this going to be like, when you're starting to do this all the time and especially like if you're at a computer, like you're going to naturally kind of do that, like get out of that, like stand up, go for a walk. Like when you feel stuck, if your body is reflecting that, like drop it, right? You're saying like, it's hard to sleep. It is hard to sleep, but sometimes really the best thing you can do for your business is take a nap and let your nervous system reset. So like, I think that's a really under talked about thing.
1000%. I also think sometimes, we might think we're being productive sitting at a computer all day long, but like your brain isn't really there. And if you're well rested, like you might just do that type of work in half the amount of time because you're focused. So I think it's definitely an art of balancing that I'm definitely still learning and trying to figure out for myself. There's good days where I'm like, wait,
good weeks and bad weeks. And The second thing I would say, which piggybacks off of that and kind of anchors us back into what we had intended to talk about here with branding, is to really not just think about, and we have a lot of conversations about, what does the customer persona want? What does the customer need? And how brand can magnetize the right people into the business. But one of the things I've been talking about and hammering on lately is the idea that the brand is really just the market facing side of the culture coin, right? Like brand and marketing and brand and culture are really two sides of the same coin. And if your culture is not in alignment with your brand, that is going to leak out into your customer experience. If you are setting, like, say you have a brand intention to create, like, let's use Patagonia as an example, because it's a very big, popular, well-respected brand, and they do a great job with integrity. But like, it's all about adventure and exploration and freedom. But if all of the operational systems, all of the ways that the business operates and the ways that it treats its people and the way that the founder treats themselves doesn't reflect those same values, everything else is going to feel inauthentic. And one of the things that I get so frustrated about is this idea of an authentic brand. Like, everyone, if you ever hire anybody to help you with their branding and they're like, oh, we're just going to build you an authentic brand, just fire them, because that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
An authentic brand doesn't teach you anything about the brand. It's like, oh, well, just be authentic, just be yourself and you'll be successful. And then when you aren't, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with your authenticity? Your authenticity isn't good enough. You know what I mean? When in truth, authenticity is also just an excuse for people to like say and think and do whatever they want whenever they feel like it, without having to pause to be strategic and to meet the business where it's at, and to meet the market where it's at, and to meet the customer where it's at, and to meet the team members where they're at, right? The brand is the connective tissue, the space between all the people in the brand's orbit. And that is so important, to make sure that you are building a business you want to be inside of, because no amount of fancy taglines and marketing campaigns are going to help you build a sustainable business if you don't want to be in the business. And that's not to say you can't have passive income. But if if your business, or to say that sometimes it won't be stressful, but back to that window of tolerance idea, like if your stress isn't something you can channel, it's not useful stress. We call in the nervous system eustress versus de-stress. If your business causes you distress, you have a big problem. And so many people are going to just tell you to, push through that. And I'm going to say, like, don't stop and ask yourself, like, what is out of alignment here? Because it matters to the bottom line. Like, your well-being matters.
Yeah, I love that, we got in here right at the start, so deep, and this is really insightful. Now, I'm sure for the listeners, but also for myself here. Let's dive a little bit deeper. You say a lot of times that, brand is not a subset of marketing. It's actually the foundation, Can you break that down for us? How did we end up getting it so backwards as an industry? Like, marketing, branding, we always keep clubbing it as a subset all the time.
Well, I mean, I'll answer the how do we get it so backwards part first, because I think a lot of it has to do with our language and the laziness of our language, right? So the idea that there's all these different words that are flying around: brand identity, brand strategy, brand assets, right? And we also live in a culture that wants things to be tangible. People want to give you their money and they want to get something tangible. And so, in order to sell brand, it's become like, okay, how do we make that more tangible? How do we make that more tangible? How do we make that more tangible? Oh, it's a logo pack. You know what I mean? Yeah. But then it also becomes this part where, like, anybody who's ever started a business knows that, like, yes, a logo pack is a valuable asset, but it's not always something that you want to invest in right away, and that maybe you're going to reinvest in it in a year. So, like, I started my business in this realm. My first business in this realm was Charlie Birch Consulting. And I was just like, okay, I'm going to help these local businesses. This is right when we moved back to New Jersey. And I saw all these businesses that I had grown up patroning, that were like part of the fabric of the community. And they were just having a really hard time modernizing. And their websites were just awful. Like the customer it was like disrespectful to the customer to like have to deal with that kind of a website. And they were going to lose business, and they weren't even going to know they were going to lose business because they have the idea that they're just word of mouth, foot traffic businesses. And it's like, they were just not even paying attention to that. So I was like, I'll just help these people with their website. But then you get to the fact that you realize, like, why is your website, which is a brand asset, so bad? Because you don't know what to put on it. Why don't you know what to put on it? Because you never really stopped to think about how to translate what you do really well in person into a digital or tangible format, right? And that's a lot harder to do. It's a lot harder to sell. And so I think, we just, the marketplace is a living system, and we are metabolically designed to choose the path of least resistance, right? Yeah. And so the path of least resistance is to just slap a logo on stuff and check the branding box, but the reality is that that's not good enough, especially now where we have this uprise of personal brand. And this ties back into this idea of burnout, right? Like there's so much narrative about personal brand, like, oh, you have to have a personal brand. Every business of the future is going to have a person who's their
That's business 101. Like that's when you go to a business class, that's all you hear.
And you're supposed to be running a business, and you're supposed to be on LinkedIn 24/7 doing high quality engagement with everybody in your network's posts when you have 10,000 followers. Not that I have 10,000 followers, but like, it's just inhumane and unrealistic. And so the idea that if you look at the market and you look at the history of business, the history of business doesn't have social media. The history of business doesn't have personal brands. The history of business has brands that people bond with, like Lego or like Patagonia, or like, is there a spokesperson? Sure. But is my relationship with them? No. My relationship's with the business, because they took the time to create an identity that's dynamic enough and clear enough that everybody inside the business can embody it consistently and allows you to bond. And so like, I feel like this is a thing that happens especially for small businesses, where the shortcut, like the easy thing is to like be the personal brand, but then you hit a ceiling where you literally cannot continue to do everything yourself, but you've set this precedent that you're the business, and anything else from that is inauthentic and disruptive to customer expectations, when the real point of brand is not just to make you look and sound good, but to set, meet, and exceed expectations.
Definitely.
Right.
That's a brilliant point. And we kind of want to dive here deeper into like brand identity. I've seen you say and post like it's not just like fonts or your tone, right? But how your team really behaves at every touch point. So maybe like, for our listeners here, you could share a real world example with like having that misalignment between departments can really dilute a brand's impact. And kind of how do you get them back on track when you see such a scenario in your work?
Yeah. I don't have that problem with my clients because they hire us to fix. No, I'm kidding. All my problems, I have these problems, right? And I want to say, I'll put like high level disclaimer, like there is no perfect brand execution. It's about, are you paying attention and self-correcting on purpose, or are you not paying attention and all the corrections are happening by default, right? That's really the most important thing, is like I'm not suggesting that there's like some perfect way to do it. But I do actually have a really good example. Actually, there's a LinkedIn article about this, because it was so infuriating to me that I was like frustrated with these people. But I am a mom.
No way.
I have 2 kids, and about a year ago, 2 Christmases ago, we bought my son like a vroom vroom, like ride on UTV, like battery operated little car for the yard. And I bought the product insurance that comes with Amazon. And so I was like, oh, it's like $25 to like, have it be protected, which was like a $500 toy. So I was like, okay, cool. We're going to do that.
Yeah.
Well, it broke. And so I pursued a claim. Well, on the website and in all the marketing about this product insurance, it says live customer support 24/7, chat and phone, right? All this, just that. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
that makes me feel really good as a customer that if and when I have a claim, I'll be able to talk to a
Mhm.
human, which is an increasingly rare phenomenon, So
Yeah.
that makes me feel good. So here we are, I have to make a claim. So it's 24/7. So I call the claim number. Hi, you've reached this company. Our offices are currently closed. Please call back during business hours. If this is not hours, please use our chat support on our website. I'm like, okay, so you just blatantly lied, right?
About the 24/7. What's happening here? Yeah.
I don't have the expectation that I should be able to talk to somebody on the phone 24/7. That is
Yeah.
not an expectation I brought to the table. That is an
That
expectation
was
you
created for you. Yeah.
explicitly set and then
Mhm.
immediately didn't meet, right? And then
Oh
right
my God.
away, again, the chatbot is like, oh, this chatbot is broken. So I can't get through to anybody,
No way.
right? And so then the way that it's set up on Amazon is that like there's certain categories of products. But then when I finally got through to a person and I have the claim form, the reason I couldn't do it through Amazon is because my product wasn't an obvious fit into any of those categories of products because
Mm.
they're insuring everything. They're just like kind of throwing these buckets out there, which is like
Mm.
understandable. But then I
Yeah.
get the claim form and I don't know how to fill it out any more than I knew how to fill out the digital form because I don't fit and
In the curriculum.
I can't talk to a person. And then
Yeah.
I send the claim form and then it triggers like this email sequence where they're telling me that the claim is wrong. I need to send more information, blah, 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 blah. But because my Amazon account is shared with my mom, I have her phone number, somebody else's her email and somebody else's phone number.
Yeah.
So I'm calling them like, why it won't let me log in to view my thing. So it was just such a mess. It was like the whole thing was just like a giant mess. And I finally figured
Yeah.
out, and this is the real kicker, the phone number that was associated with my account that was keeping me locked out of my customer dashboard was not my phone number. It was not my mom's phone number. It was their internal phone number that had been linked to my account when they transferred me from one department to the other.
Oh my
It took
God.
me 3 weeks to file my claim. And I did. I got my money and I got my new car and my kid is happy. But like, I have a full-time job. I have a family and I'm
Yeah.
doing the work, right? And this is like, don't make it hard for your customers to give you their money
Mhm.
or to give
Yeah.
you praise. And that
Yeah.
is the friction point, right? Like when you promise something in the marketplace because it is attractive, but
And
then
everybody else is doing it, so why not?
right.
Yeah.
And then the salesperson, not only are they contradicting it, but they're like, they didn't even get the memo that they're supposed to like slowly let you down off this lie or this, inflated promise. And it just, even if each siloed experience is inherently fine and it's
Mhm.
not morally bankrupt, the friction and the inconsistency makes it on a implicit level. And it's like, makes you be like, these people like don't have their shit together, or like what's going on here? And the thing again with psychology and your nervous system, the implicit things, they don't care about logic and they don't care about time. The
Mhm.
unconscious, which is the implicit learning system, does not recognize time. Once it knows something, that thing is happening all the time. So if you break trust with a customer, especially on a subtle level,
Yeah.
it's always there now. It's always there. It's always informing their willingness to go deeper with you, even if
Mhm.
they don't know it. And that's when you're going to get those like people who are, haggling with you on price or ghosting you because they're just like, I don't really know. And they're not going to take the time to work through what it is about you. And they
Mhm.
shouldn't. They don't owe you that.
Definitely.
I hope that answers your question. I was like, oh,
No, definitely. No.
more.
Firstly, I'm so sorry. That's one horrible experience to go through. Like, I hate when you're promised something, you're promised the world and, like, everything in it, and then you get nothing
No.
even close
I'll
to.
tell you another, like on the flip side of that, and I'll name this company out loud, Vistaprint. I had a wonderful customer experience with Vistaprint
Yeah.
where I ordered brochures for a client of ours. We designed this brochure that she was going to take to a conference, and it was kind of a quick project, and we needed to get it ordered for her and mailed to her so that she had them to take with her to the conference.
Yeah.
And so I did the ordering on Vistaprint, and I put in her address wrong. So I got a notification that said, the package has been delivered. And I was like, hey, Aretha, like, did you get your package? She's like,
Yeah.
no. And so I sent the picture that the delivery guy had put on the tracking page. And she's like, that's not even my building. Like, it went like across the street to some other building. It's like, oh no. And I was like fully prepared to absorb the cost of express shipping it to her and having it, just not having her pay twice, and just like, okay, now I'm going to pay for these brochures and I'm going to have them express shipped and I'm just going to eat it. And honestly, it would have made the project like almost unprofitable because it was such a small project to begin with.
Yeah.
And I called the Vistaprint people and I immediately was put to like, this is the right department. The number was the right place. I didn't have to be on hold. I talked to a nice guy and he was like, you know what? We're going to send it out express for free, no extra charge, no problem.
Amazing. Yeah.
And I was like, this is the best customer experience I've had probably in a decade, honestly.
Wow.
It was like, here you're a human and you're hooking a human up. Now, I know not all businesses have the resources to absorb my mistake, but I just like, it made my day.
And it's something you remember, right? Like it stayed with you long enough to come to a podcast and talk about it. So that's how
that is aligned with what they say they're all about. Like making it super easy and enjoyable to like bring your ideas to life. And those promises that, think about it if it was a dating profile, right? Like you went on OkCupid or whatever your dating profile is, and you get to the date and the person has, 30 more pounds, is 20 years older.
Yeah.
They don't work there anymore. They got fired last week. You know what I mean? And everything about it was not the same. You'd be like, but then I had a sales call with somebody like last year and they wanted me to create 5 different brands for the same business.
Okay.
So they could target different audiences because this customer demographic, but it wasn't like, oh, we're going to create 5 different like
iterations of the product.
Right. It was like, oh, this person wants us to be this. This person wants us to be this. And it wasn't even like we're going to test what works, but they were like, I know how to manipulate this person this way and this person this way and this person this way. And then they're just going to come to us and we're going to get their money. And I was like, 5 branding projects, that's like $300,000 worth of work. But I was like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Ew.
Definitely. Like that's just,
Ew.
I don't even know what standard you adopt to have to do that business. That's some desperation right there.
Yeah.
To really sell out their brand. But one question I really want to ask you is like, we're in a time where AI is being used to automate everything from email flows to chatbots. But that also means like the tools are interacting with customers on behalf of the brand. How should teams kind of think about brand behavior when AI becomes a touch point? And like, just your thoughts in this era of kind of AI taking the lead.
I have tons. And, I think probably because my business is humanized, you might be, primed to think that I'm like an anti-AI person. My opinion about technology in general is that it's only as valuable as the human endeavors we use it to propel, right? And I think there's a lot of real concerns in the marketplace right now about AI displacing human beings. But I think it's also like an important thing to realize that we're not entitled to a specific type of work, right? Like my mom and dad, when they had their company, they had a word processing department. Okay. Yeah. A department. My mom manually cut and paste and white out her proposals. Like, do we not introduce word processing software because those people are going to lose their jobs? No, we adapt, right? And it's scary. But to your point, I think I've been experimenting with AI a ton this year. We have one client in particular who is a writer, and I've been trying so hard to get her to like let me do more of her work because she's just can't write even as a strong writer. She can't write the volume that the marketplace demands, right? And so
and writer's block is real, right?
writer's
But
block is real, right? And so I think what we're working on right now actually is I'm working on with a colleague of mine a joint offering that'll empower a VA team to do engagement on social for the brand and or for the different leadership in the brand with their voice. So our tool, which I gave you the link, the Brand IDQ, is designed to ask questions that tap into the unconscious of the founder's mind and create a psychographic for the brand that's distinct from the founders, right? So the questions will be like, we, not you, not I, we as an entity, this, we as an entity, that. And so what it will produce at the end is a diagnostic of what your brand's innate purpose or core motive is, how you can use that as a what kind of decisions are recommended around that purpose, what to be mindful of, what to watch for. So like in the case of an AI chat, like let's hope that somebody is watching those logs. And, let's say you're like our brand is the core purpose is to create order amongst like within chaos. And we do that with, clear systems, with structure, with boundaries, with if 50% or more of the customer experiences coming through those chatbots are confusion, then something's gone wrong and I can go back. But it's also really important to, again, back up that brand isn't just voice. It's not just like, oh, here's a tone that has 4 dimensions and here's like a list of words that we use and like 7 or 8 pieces of copy that are like our core motive. You have to give the software behavioral guidelines and logic.
You have to build the mind, right? It's almost like training your brain.
Right? And so our model has the core motive, which has recommended decision making, like guardrails, kind of things to be mindful of. And then we have 3 emotive styles, which makes the emotive triad. So, and this is all based in like Jungian depth psychology, geek me. But the 3 emotive triads, the motive styles, you'll have each style has a need. And it's not just like a need that it's not like, oh, my customers need ice cream. No, it's like the brand needs this. The brand needs this thing. Then you have the core beliefs, and the needs and the core beliefs together inform what the habits of the individuals are in their own, like, just I sit down at my desk and I'm in finance in the business, I'm in customer support in the business, I'm in marketing in the business. These are the types of habits that are going to help me activate those energies in my work. And then similarly, there's a bucket of behavioral guidelines called what we call relational strategies, which is how you show up in relationship to a person. And that could be at a networking event, or it could be at a presentation, or it could be with a customer, or it could be, with a prospect, right? And so we have that framework. And what I've been working on this year is backing that framework up into the configuration of a GPT. We're actually testing right now how we can take those unique configurations of each of our clients' brand, pair that with their knowledge base, and make it an engine that they can use to replicate their engagement online, because this shit's not right. It's just it's my language. It's inhumane the way that we are expected to be available to. And so anyone who's like griping at people about using AI as a comment tool can just like take a beat. Right? Like, you're using AI to schedule your content, right? Why shouldn't I be able to use AI to engage with it if it's grounded in, right? It's a capacity builder, not a way to check out. And that's the problem. If you're going to use it as a way to check out and you're not going to monitor, but I think on the front end of training the channels, giving it behavioral logic is really important, and not just like plastering brand voice. Because also a lot, especially if you're using GPT as like your base. I don't have as much experience with like Claude, and I'm not a developer, so I don't have any experience like building something from the ground. But GPT has its own behavioral logic, which even when I tell it not to do those things, it's really a lot of coaching to be not itself, right? Like the exclamatory, oh my God, that's the best idea ever. Like, what? I just told you like this today, and it's like, you're a genius. And it's like, like I don't know if I'm a genius, you know?
Definitely.
And then of course the dash dilemma, which I love it.
Yeah.
I love a good M. I'm sick of hearing about them, but I love an M dash. But I've told my GPT to like, I'll put my own M dashes in. Okay, let me be.
I don't need you to.
Maybe my own M dash authority. But I hope that answers your question.
No, definitely. I know we're coming towards the end of our session here today, but what you said about like, not being kind of afraid of AI, it is something that's coming. And even for jobs, like, like you said, there were things that were being done before that, we didn't have the need for then. But then like everything, the internet boom, right? I'm sure there were a lot of jobs displaced then, but people are doing just fine and better off because we as humans can be adaptable, and that should be our biggest strength.
Yeah.
And I think when it comes to AI personally also, I'm with you in this. Like, this isn't something that's optional anymore to begin with also, right?
Yeah.
So if your competitors are doing this and they're already getting ahead and building their capacities, and there's more that they can do with their time, and you're not utilizing because you're concerned, then you're just like, lagging behind in the race, and you're not able to really put yourself out there as much as, other people are. So I would like to thank you so much for like, this deep and refreshing perspective. I know I learned a lot, and I'm sure like, our listeners will too. Just for like, people who do want to reach out to you, for brands that like, business owners that maybe want to kind of get consulting work or branding help and advice from you, where can they really reach out to you?
Yeah, sure. I'm very active on LinkedIn. I will respond to a connection request. I might not accept it if it doesn't have a note, but usually I do accept all connection requests that I get and try to start a conversation with people. So feel free to reach out to me that way. You can also email me directly, charlie@humanizecollective.com. Humanize does not have an E. And our website is humanizecollective.com. If you're interested in the Brand IDQ framework, that is available on our website for free. It's a complimentary tool. And then the next step up from that is like a results integration call. And that's with me, where we would look at, any questions or things you might have about the results that you got. Also in that tool is designed to stand alone. Like the call is an optional add-on. But there is instructions on the results page about how to start taking the insight and converting it into action. If you're in more of a DIY frame, I'm very much come from a DIY bootstrap background. So I make a really strong point of making sure that our philosophy is accessible to anyone who's interested in deploying it. And
awesome.
Also, the other thing I'll add is that we are in June. We are launching what we call the Inner Circle, which is our take on virtual networking without an elevator pitch firing squad. So if anybody's interested in like networking different online, there's information about how to request an invitation to that on our website. And our podcast is hopefully going to launch in July. So follow along for information.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the most information I have about that right now. We haven't even picked the title yet. So
that's very exciting. Congratulations. You're doing some amazing things, and it's so refreshing to, kind of hear such an integrated perspective and such a forward-thinking perspective also, because you're definitely here to shift mindsets. So thank you so much to you for this episode today, and for the listeners that tune in to learn more. We'll be back and keep catching us up for, getting the best insights and what's happening in the marketing industry, as well as data and AI. Thank you so much, everyone.